I think there are like 3 Simpsons writers that all have a math or science background, but other than that, it's kind of rare. Well, I guess the way to go from engineering to show business is I was very miserable as an engineer, and even though like I find that stuff interesting, just working in it, I don't know why, it just bummed me out. And I was actually living in Silicon Valley. But I was, in between that, I was a musician. I'd always played music, so I did that for a living for probably 5 years while I started messing around with animation. So animation is making animated short films was how I got into this, by just making them on my own and mailing them out.
I think Silicon Valley is a very, very smart reflection of reality, because there's a very powerful group who are changing the world in terms of technology, and we're giving them the recognition. Before, the world was the world of jocks, rugby players, but now it's you can wear glasses, be skinny, and be cool and have sex.
Yeah.
Right? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's
the new sexuality, being a nerd.
There's definitely this odd thing that's happened, and I don't know if there's ever been a time in history where nerds were considered sexy or where they were even powerful. I mean, there's, you know, the richest people in the world 100, 200 years ago were like people like Andrew Carnegie or Rockefeller, and they were very alpha male. They were intelligent people, but they weren't, you know, Paul Allen and Mark Zuckerberg and these types. And so it's a really odd time in history. I think that's why I wanted to do this show, is just to really look at that, actually, like how these very introverted, nerdy, almost Aspergery people deal with huge success. And yeah, I think you can see this happening in the world. Like, I noticed in the last, I don't know, 7 years or so, that like really beautiful women talking about what big nerds they are, which I never heard that my whole life. I think that's sort of tied into this whole thing of like, you know, that's who has the money now, or I don't know what's going on. Portlandia did a really hilarious PSA from a real nerd saying, you know, stop calling yourself a nerd. I really am a nerd, and you know, but yeah, that's a phenomenon.
And how much do you think Silicon Valley has contributed to change our prejudice perspective of certain social group, like in this case, nerds, female and male?
Yeah, I mean, Silicon Valley seems to have definitely changed the way, just, you know, people all over in the middle of the country look at the nerdy kid in high school a little differently than they did when I was a nerdy kid in high school. I was born in the wrong time. But yeah, I mean, my daughters are 24 and 21, and you know, it seems like at their high schools, the jocks aren't necessarily the big man on campus like they used to be. I've just noticed that in high schools now. Maybe it's just, you know, the ones that my daughter went to, or friends of mine's kids have, you know, said the same thing. So it's yeah, Silicon Valley's it's changed the world. I don't know for better or for worse, but it's definitely changed it.
When you were developing the idea, did you have a lot of doors slam on your face, or they were all open, very easy, here I am?
We had some doors slammed that then opened after the show aired. Like when we were I was originally started researching this, just kind of like one of my best friend's nephews works at Google, and just kind of a friend of mine from college, because I used to work in tech, just kind of asking questions of people I knew through my own connections, not saying, hey, I'm making this show for HBO. And then when we got greenlit, we did do a research trip where, you know, HBO made calls, and people were a little cautious about letting us in. And but then after the first season, you know, we'd already been to Google, but, you know, Facebook invited us, and I mean, everybody, GitHub, Kara Swisher from, you know, Recode, TechCrunch, Disrupt, all these people just, you know, really welcomed us. They've been really good. I mean, we've had very few doors slammed since the show's gone on the air.
In a world in which we are a little ADD, like I go to my phone, 30
Yeah.
seconds. What's the secret to keep a show going? This is, you're introducing the third season. How much do you have to change the characters? Do you have to introduce new things, like you were saying, sex and friendship, and
Yeah.
the characters have to, no?
Yeah, no, we, well, it's tricky because, you know, if they become, it's tricky because if they become too successful, then I think you start, you know, you don't root for them as much. You don't, you know, and I think if it's like, oh, now he's a billionaire and has a girlfriend, lives happily ever after, that's not that funny or interesting. Although, I mean, I think you can become a billionaire and still have a lot of problems. So, but yeah, that's the tricky thing. But I mean, luckily the tech world is just so volatile, and I mean, you look at what's happened at companies like Twitter, where it's just, you know, the founders fighting, one guy getting fired as CEO, then fighting his way back in, then that guy gets fired, and you know, it's just, there's a lot of drama. It's like a big soap opera, a lot of these companies, and so that's the, you know, that's the good part of it, is that there's a lot of material to draw from, and the tech world is just so rich with crazy people.
In your opinion, what's the best social network platform and why? Or you don't want to endorse?
Oh, I mean, I don't know if any of these things are good for mankind. I mean, Facebook was definitely good for, you know, catching up with people that you know, I mean, it's definitely fun to sit there and go, oh, whatever happened to that guy in elementary school, and go, you know, everyone picked on, oh, he's a police officer. Okay, you know, like, it's just fun to do that. I mean, to have that much information at your fingertips. I mean, I don't know if it's, I guess time will tell if it's good for mankind or not. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't really, I'm not much of a, I don't get on Twitter or Instagram that much. It's mostly just spy on people.
Last question, are you more, when you do a casting session for a new season, do you do it from a point of view of instinct, or from the lines, from the way the person looks, or everything?
That's a good question. It's, I'd say I cast mostly just, I try to go with instinct. But definitely the way a person has to, I mean, you know, if you have somebody who's just, you know, looks like a super athlete, and they're supposed to be playing, you know, a nerdy founder of a company, that's probably not going to work. But so the look is part of it, but a lot of it's just kind of instinct. Like, do I really believe, when I'm watching this, do I believe that that's that person, and is that an interesting character, and is it how, I mean, sometimes I imagine things a certain way, and the perfect person comes in and they're a great actor. Sometimes somebody's slightly different, but I like what it is. And then, you know, and originally with this cast, with the main cast, all of them read for T.J. Miller's part, except for Thomas. All of the people who I cast, including the big head, but they all had different kind of interpretations. And so then we went back and just said, okay, let's write that Guilfoyle's going to be this kind of brooding Satanist, and Jared's going to be this guy. You know, we kind of tailored it to those actors. So, but I'd say instinct is the main thing.